I think it's safe to say the Arizona Cardinals officially have a quarterback controversy between Jacoby Brissett and Kyler Murray. Murray has been out for a few games now with a foot injury, and in these past 3 games, Jacoby Brissett has recorded 860 passing yards and 6 touchdowns to 1 interception. He has been playing arguably the best ball of his career, and it's coming at a time where I would argue that Kyler Murray's spot is less solidified than ever. In turn, now we're starting to hear some conversations, and you really saw this in their win against Dallas. You saw it on prime time. They were talking about it. The status of that quarterback room. Who's going to be the number one when Kyler Murray is back? And right now, Jacoby Brissett is making a great case for that spot. Now, to understand how we got to this point, first I want to talk about Kyler Murray himself and the journey we've had to get there. Kyler Murray is somebody who, as the number one overall pick, has not quite lived up to expectations from that 2019 draft. Because when you're the number one pick, especially as a quarterback, you are expected to be the undeniable face of a franchise, and Kyler just hasn't quite been that. There were times like when they got DeAndre Hopkins that Murray looked really good. There were times he was even in the fringe MVP discussions at one point. But he just never quite took that next leap into truly being this guy that you could deem worthy of being that first overall pick. And what he has been instead is a solid NFL quarterback. This is somebody that you can kind of rank in that 16 to 20 range. He's never going to be, at this point in his career, he has not been for the last couple of years now necessarily above average, but he hasn't been below average either. He just kind of hovered over that midpoint. And that's the thing about Kyler Murray is, at this point, you don't know that your ceiling is that high with him, but you do have a pretty solid floor. He's not going to put you in precarious scenarios. He's going to be solid enough for you, but he's not going to take you to the next level. And so, in turn, when that happens, when you have this quarterback who is consistently pretty steady, but they never take that leap into being what you might have hoped they would be, that kind of leaves you in a league now where everybody's looking for a quarterback. That kind of puts you in a little bit of quarterback purgatory, in which you're not playing bad enough for the team to move on from you, but you're also not playing good enough to have your spot completely secure. For example, if you go into a draft in these coming years, and there is just this amazing quarterback, and the Cardinals have a top pick, I don't think you would go away from taking that QB in favor of Kyler Murray. That's kind of the position I view him in, is you're fine with keeping him, but you're also open to other options. And that's just kind of the state of the league today, in which we are so passing oriented. And you've really got to have a good quarterback to win, or even a great quarterback. Kyler is a good one, but is he great? That's the biggest question surrounding him. We know he can be an NFL starter, but how high up is he on that list of starters? Now, last year, the Arizona Cardinals, they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. early in the first round. And we had just been through a couple seasons in which Kyler Murray without D-Hop, he didn't look quite the same as he did, and that's okay. When you lose a superstar wide receiver, you're not going to look quite the same. And that was kind of the move that was expected to get him back on track. Last year, we didn't really see those fireworks once again. And so it's just kind of been a continuous state of, I don't quite know what to do with Kyler Murray. I don't know quite where to place him. And once again, what happens at your quarterback spot, that can kind of lead to a bit of hesitancy to commit your long-term future with him. And bringing Marvin Harrison Jr. in, that's a big addition, but the connection hasn't quite been there the way that you might expect it to be between a former number one overall pick and an early generational elite kind of wide receiver. So that's the spot Kyler's in. Not necessarily entirely secure, but also you are going to have to wow us to move on from him. And then we get to Jacoby Brissett. Has he been wowing the Cardinals? He sure has looked pretty good at 860 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick these last three games. That's pretty good, including a primetime win against the Dallas Cowboys. Jacoby Brissett is certainly an intriguing option. I don't know if he's the best option, but the way that he's been playing as of late, they were saying this on Sunday night as well, it's hard to just take him out of the lineup when Kyler's back. So here we are. You have Jacoby Brissett building momentum against Kyler Murray, who has seemingly plateaued in terms of his production. That's not to say he's not a good quarterback, but he's not quite hitting that level that you might want from him. But Jacoby Brissett right now, you're seeing some fireworks. So how much do you weigh that? And so now we get to the big question here. Yes, we know they have a little bit of a quarterback controversy, but what do you do? Do you roll Jacoby Brissett, or do you go back to Kyler Murray back when he's healthy? And this is, in my opinion, where it gets really, really interesting. As I spoke about earlier, with Kyler Murray, you have a pretty steady top 17 quarterback in the league, not much more, not much less, and you can kind of get that week in, week out. You know what you're getting from him. Jacoby Brissett, I feel like it's a little bit more unproven, and he is 32 years old, but we haven't really seen Brissett, at least in recent years, be given the mantle, the keys to a team. So with the way he's been playing lately, it's kind of been eye-opening as to how much maybe that this guy could give you, in spite of the fact that no team has really given him that much of a chance, that big of an opportunity. And ultimately, who's to say how sustainable this is? Because that's the thing I keep coming back to is Kyler Murray. It may not be exciting. It may not be as flashy as it once was, but it is sustainable. You know what you're getting with him week in, week out, and you can always game plan around that. Jacoby Brissett, he's been on a great run. How long is that going to last? Is it something that we can trust for him to continue throughout an entire season, or is it just a really good stretch? Looking at some of the stats for Jacoby Brissett in particular, it kind of does remind me of Kyler Murray in a sense. His big time throws, he's made 5 of those so far per PFF. That's ranked 29th in the league. But also, his turnover worthy plays, he's only had 1 of those per PFF, and that is good for first among quarterbacks. So this is somebody also I feel like who is being pretty stable. And I do think that bodes pretty well for his sustainability in that he's not relying on the big time throws to put up big numbers. He's just doing it steadily throughout a game. And that's something you like to see as a quarterback, somebody who can consistently get the ball downfield. He doesn't have to make the highlight reel plays, but he's someone that you can lean on, you can rely on, that you can trust. And with him averaging almost 300 passing yards per game throughout his stretch as a starter this season, he has put himself in really good standing if he ever is going to be the answer at quarterback for the Cardinals. But is he going to be? I don't think so. Jonathan Gannon, he said after their win on Monday night that the spot was still going to be Kyler's when he comes back. And do I agree with that? I'm still not quite certain. But one thing I do know as a franchise, you have invested so much into Kyler Murray already. And with what you're seeing from Jacoby Brissett, he's been playing very, very well. But the perspective of Arizona, I believe, is this. Kyler Murray is somebody that you invested such heavy draft stock into, the number 1 overall pick of the 2019 NFL draft. This is somebody who early on in his career, he gave you some highlights, some fireworks alongside DeAndre Hopkins. He was a dark horse for MVP one year. You drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. because you believe that Kyler could still be your franchise quarterback. And he's never going to be the most exciting guy anymore. I think that ship has sailed. He's never going to be an MVP. I believe that ship has sailed. But what he does provide is stability. What he does provide is you know what you're getting from him week in, week out. And I think if you're the Arizona Cardinals, that's what they want right now. And sometimes it doesn't come down to the play of the quarterback; it comes down to the desire of the franchise. And right now, I think what they desire is what Kyler Murray provides. And when you are looking for a quarterback that is going to make you most comfortable, what you do not do is make a decision to bench your starter after he got hurt. And Jacoby Brissett comes in, he starts playing out of his mind. And then you make Brissett your guy. I don't think that's what the Cardinals want to do. I don't think that falls in line with their philosophy right now of just being comfortable and staying steady with Kyler. As good as Brissett has been, I just don't see that being the case. Would it be interesting? Absolutely. I feel like Kyler Murray is somebody that, with all the talk we have about him, all the discourse about where he stands among quarterbacks in this league, I think a change of scenery could either do him wonders or do him very badly, but it would be very interesting. And Jacoby Brissett to be the starter, they're not going to throw away what they have given Kyler Murray over the years to lean into what Jacoby Brissett has done for 3 games. I just don't see that being the case. He's been playing great, but I do think the job is still Kyler's when he comes back. That's not to discredit Jacoby Brissett whatsoever. I think he has been great. I've loved what I've seen from him. But simply put, and we saw this from Jonathan Gannon, what he said as well. As amazing as these 3 games have been, I do think that Kyler Murray will be the starter once he is healthy once again. As for Brissett, at this point in his career, he's looking like a journeyman. But with just a very good stretch like this one, if you are a team going into next season that needs a quarterback, I don't see why not give Jacoby Brissett a chance. He's been great, so why not allow him to be a bridge quarterback if you're one of these other teams? So that's where I stand on the Kyler Murray Jacoby Brissett situation. I understand why people would call for Brissett to be the starter. I just don't think it's quite going to happen. But this has certainly been an interesting development for the Cardinals this season, and one that will be very interesting to watch as Kyler Murray gets closer and closer to recovery.